Good evening, everyone. Thank you for joining me. Guys, again, so much happening around the world. So let me just give you a quick synopsis of what we're going to talk about today. We're going to be talking about David Cameron and how I think this recent news is a psyop, a false flag, and you'll see what I mean afterwards. We've now got criminal gangs targeting our food infrastructure in the UK. We've got looming famine and food shortages coming here to the UK. Norway are stockpiling food in huge quantities. You've got Russia now, and I shouldn't laugh, but you've got Russia using migrants now as grunt work on the front line in Ukraine. You've got North Korea sending troops into Ukraine. We've got a new strain of monkeypox that's about all of a sudden. We've got Ireland getting tough on migration. We've got the nuclear tensions are just ratcheting up and up and up, with Vladimir Putin saying that the West is playing with fire. So guys, let's just begin. So David Cameron, for those of you, or Lord Cameron as we should call him, is the UK Foreign Secretary. Remember when he got the position of, what did I say, Home Secretary? Foreign Secretary, sorry, whatever I said, he's the Foreign Secretary. Remember when he got the position of Foreign Secretary, I thought, right, this is suspicious at best. Anyway, it's come out today, I think today. Yes, today, it's come out today. He's been caught on camera with some Russian troll or some Russian prankster pretending to be Petro Poroshenko. Petro Poroshenko is the previous Ukrainian president. But he's been, David Cameron, a video of him's come out saying Labour will be just as strong for Ukraine as the Tory government. Now, the significance of this is, remember, guys, all right, those of you can remember me saying it on the video, and it's not happened yet, it might not happen, but it's a really big combat indicator to what's happening in the future if this happens. I said, right, if David Cameron stays on as Foreign Secretary, because now he's got the tools to stay on as Foreign Secretary, if and when Labour win in the UK, so for those of you in the US or anywhere else in the world, Labour would be predominantly your Liberal Party. And David Cameron is from the Conservative Party, obviously. We have a uni-party system at the moment, but they're perceived to be a right party. Now, David Cameron is a member of the House of Lords, so that would give him the ability to stay on even under a Labour government. When I first said this, people said, oh, you're being ridiculous, that's never going to happen. Guys, watch what happens. I said this like a long time ago, even before the election was called. I said, if David Cameron stays on as Foreign Secretary, this whole thing is a fix, it's a scam, and it was planned a long time ago. I don't know, guys. Maybe I'm just getting paranoid in my old age. But anyway, guys, that's what I've said. Let me read what he said here, guys. So, Lord Cameron can be seen against the wall discussing foreign affairs with someone supposed to be Petro Poroshenko, which is obviously... Fun fact about Petro Poroshenko, they call him in Ukraine, they call him the chocolate president, because he's got a huge chocolate empire. Guys, I'm not making this up. He's got he owns like a brand of chocolate. It's hard to explain it if you're from the UK. Kind of like Lindor or something. He owns a brand of chocolate called Rochen. Now, when he was trying to get elected, he said, right, if I get elected as president, I will sell my chocolate company. And once he got elected, no one would buy his chocolate company. But loads of Rochen chocolate shops kept popping up all over the country. And guys, I actually like Rochen chocolate. It's a really good chocolate, and I wish there was a store in the UK. But that's the reality, guys, just a fun fact. So yeah, so David Cameron's been seen now saying that Labour will be just as strong for Ukraine as the Conservatives will be. I think this is a psyop to give David Cameron some more credibility with the Labour voters, not the Labour politicians, because I think this is already a done deal. But anyway, guys, let me know what you think. Do we think it's a psyop, and do we think it's all planned? And again, another thing that I've been talking about for a long time is these, our food supply in the UK, how it's ridiculously vulnerable. Now, where I live, not so much now, but when I was, well, I suppose now actually, I was there earlier on today. When you drive around the countryside, a lot of these farms are left open. The farms are open. If you wanted, you could just walk into that farm and you're not, there's nothing to stop you. Now, it's come out that well, let me just read this quickly. So I'll put all the links in the description, guys. 2 men jailed for theft of tractor GPS equipment. A Hull court has sentenced 2 calculated criminals to prison after they were convicted of stealing over £200,000 worth of high-value tractor GPS kits. Tomasz Stakuskas, 32, and Mantas Pelionis, 31. Both men from Hull. Now guys, those to me sound like Eastern European names. I don't know whether they've got Eastern European families. I don't know whether these guys have come over here on some sort of claiming asylum. I don't know how they've got here. But the reason I'm telling you this is this highlights what I've been saying for the longest time. These criminal gangs, nobody even has to pay these people. They're getting paid themselves. If somebody just gives them a little push and say, hey guys, go and disrupt the UK food supply. Go and steal things from their tractors. Go and set fire to their fields. Go and contaminate their water sources. All these things are ridiculously easy to do. And they're cheap and it's effective as well. As I'm going to come on after, I'm going to talk about the real food shortages without this. So an article from from the BBC. Yeah. So let me just read you this, guys. I'll just read you the first bit. Farmers at war with countryside crime gangs. Again, who are the crime gangs? Farmers and landowners say they are at war with countryside crime gangs and need more help from specialist rural police officers. One farmer told the BBC he faced constant warfare against balaclava-clad thieves breaking into his farmyard and also against gangs of illegal hairdressers or whatever that is, I don't know. A new report it goes on, guys, and he just says how, the crime against farmers in the countryside has increased ridiculously. Now, why is that? Why do we think this has happened? It never used to be that way, guys, because we used to have, tacit trust and an implied social contract whereby, as a child, as a 90s kid, we used to go play in the farmer's field. We never set fire to the farmer's field. We never stole any tractors. We never stole any GPS units. We never did anything wrong to the farmers because we knew those farmers were providing us food. That's your social contract, all right? The farmer lets you play in his field to some extent. Don't go and mess with the farmer's stuff because he needs it for providing us with food. I don't know about you guys. It's all I've been eating lately. Food, yeah, we kind of need it. So where are these people coming from? I did a video a while back about 31,000 people have vanished. 31,000 migrants have vanished out of the system. So where are those people gone? Are these those people? Are they now, do they need money because they're not getting any money from anywhere else? Have they decided to rob the farms, rob farmers' fields, rob tractors, rob GPS units? It's all this stuff now, and it's all building into this cauldron of chaos, leading towards food shortages. So we are going to see food shortages in the UK. And I say things that are contradictory, but they're not. I say nobody's going to run out of... I say the UK is not going to run out of food, and I don't think it is. The UK will see food shortages and we will see ridiculous price hikes. Look at crisps. I used to be able to buy 6 packets of crisps for 99 pence. I can buy 5 now for £1.35. It's ridiculous. But the cost of everything's going up, Obviously in poor countries who can't afford that premium of basic stuffs like grain, and the basic foodstuffs, they're the countries who will see a famine, and it's, guys, it's going to be absolutely terrible. this has been brought on by extreme weather, by the war in Ukraine, by the rising energy costs, and also, guys, as we've just seen, by crime. We've actually got crime on our own. You know, it's kind of like, you know, the guy when he sits on the guy who sits on the tree and he's chopping the tree off at that end, you know, with the tree, and then it breaks, and it's insane, guys. All right, but that's the reality of the situation. We have had October 22 to March 24 was the wettest period since records began. So, and I know what people are saying. Oh, but we need water. Yeah, that's fine. But if you just want to grow moss, we also need sun. We need air. We need not rain. So all this stuff, you know, we've had a really bad planting season since October 22 up until kind of now, really, you know, where we've not been able to plant anything. So that's vastly limited the amount of, you know, the amount of food we can grow in this country. Let's not forget that the costs in Ukraine have gone up drastically because the Ukrainians would usually ship their grain out of the country through the Black Sea. They can't do that anymore. Now, the reason that's cheaper, well, the first reason it's cheaper, transporting things by sea is always cheaper than transporting things by road because the sea will take 30% of your weight. So 30% of your mass goes into the ocean. The good old ocean will take that. The ocean, the rivers, canals, whatever, if it's floating, 30% of that will be taken by the water. It'll contain 30% of that. So instead of pushing a ton, you're pushing 700 kilos. Now, with that, the Ukrainians can't get that out, so they have to send it out by road. So they have to send it out by train now, which is the next cheapest. The problem there, when you come to Przemysl, or, well, Przemysl mainly, you know, which would be the border town between Ukraine and Poland. When you get there, the Ukrainian tracks are this big, but the European tracks are this big. So you can't just send the train straight through. So you have to get the grain off the train, and it's a pain. And sorry guys, and put that on another train, and then you have to send that. This is flooding the European market, which is causing problems. The Ukrainians have now just introduced a minimum price for their exports. So the prices everywhere, you know, are going up drastically. And again, the cost of diesel's gone up. So the cost of all transport now has gone up. And this is going to be passed down and passed down and passed down to us, the consumers, who are going to have to make decisions, eating or heating, guys, especially if we have a hard winter this year. Poor countries will not be able to import basic foods because of the price, you know, because it'll be so expensive. If you're a grain producer, are you going to send your grain to a poor country who can only pay you X? Or are you going to send your grain to another country who can pay you a lot more because everybody needs it? Supply and demand, people will pay more. So that's why the poor countries, I feel, there is a looming famine. Richer countries, you know, Western countries, there's food shortages on the way, guys. Massive, you know, massive price hikes. And all this time, you know, you've got countries now stockpiling mass amounts of food. Just like they stockpile oil and diesel and energy, they're now stockpiling food because people know that food is you know, we kind of need food. And also, you know, the countries, they're not stupid. They know what's coming. They see the writing on the wall. So let me read what's happening in Norway. Have we done that one? Yeah, we've done that one. Norway starts stockpiling grain amid security concerns. Here we are, guys. The initial contract will cover storage for 30,000 tonnes of grain. The goal is to store around 82,000 tonnes of grain by the end of the decade, ensuring enough supply for 3 months' consumption of Norway's population in a potential crisis. And what crisis are we talking about, guys? We're talking about a full-scale war here, right? Everybody says, oh, there might be an emergency crisis. Remember the United States when they gave that nuclear warning, like last year or whenever it was? Just totally random, guys. We're just doing it, you know. Hey, guys, ever thought of what to do if there's a nuclear attack? You know, wow, okay, that's quite weird. The United Kingdom, you know, the United Kingdom have given out a preppers list now, you know, that we're supposed to have 3 days food and water. You know, Norway is saying they want 3 months food for the whole country. Guys, look at the writing on the wall. People are telling us what's happening. All we need to do is look and listen, of course. Now, this was a strange one, guys, all right? This was a very, very strange one. So, well, I'll just read it to you. I'll read you that. So this is from Politico. I like reading Politico. They seem to be a good... they don't seem to put too much bias on things. They just kind of tell you what's happening. Kremlin sends migrants to dig trenches in occupied parts of Ukraine. Doesn't seem a slant on that, guys. You know, if this was from a biased media, they could have put Russian thugs force migrants fleeing war to dig under bombing conditions. But they haven't. They've just put Kremlin sends migrants to dig trenches in occupied parts of Ukraine, which I feel that's a fair, you know, it's fair. It's a fair headline. Russian authorities have been using foreigners who have obtained Russian citizenship to help fight the war in Ukraine. Moscow located more than 30,000 foreign migrants who recently received Russian citizenship. Guys, so they've found 30,000 migrants now that, from the article, it looks like they're trying to push to the front line. Russia, right. So let me read that again. Moscow located more than 30,000 foreign migrants who recently received Russian citizenship, but did not register for the military in Russia. So, you know, 30,000 people came in, or whatever the number was. Right, who's going to register for the military? No, I'm good. No, you sure? Yeah, I'm good. Okay, right, closing, you're going to go and dig. Where? In the front line. Guys, you couldn't make it up. And then, we have already caught more than 30,000 migrants who, well, I'll do it in a Russian accent. We have already caught more than 30,000 migrants who received citizenship and did not want to register for military. Put them on a register and have already sent 10,000 to front line of special military operation, he said during a panel discussion at the migration legislation in Russia. So you see, guys, you know, the Russians, they are really pushing everything at this conflict. If there was any, you know, if there was any sign of peace talk, I mean, some of these things that are happening, you know, look at the prisoners that they're sending. Let's just take those 2 examples and let's elaborate a little bit. So you've now got a situation where the Russians are getting migrants from who knows where. They're asking them if they want to join the military. If they don't want to join the military, they're saying, okay, fine, go and dig. Go and dig trenches in front of the military, for the military. So what's that going to do? It's kind of going to give these guys a little bit of an incentive to join the military, because you either join the military and stay at the safety back here, or you don't join the military and you go and have to go and dig under indirect fire from artillery bombardments. Guys, this sort of stuff is like World War II stuff, you know, that you would see on an old World War II movie and you'd think, yeah, that'd never happen, that's impossible. Double that up now with the fact that Russia is, you know, they're not hiding it, it's open knowledge that Russians are letting prisoners go to the front line and fight. It's absolutely insane. And again, all the same time, we've got North Korea. Sorry, that was my Yorkshire accent coming out. All the time, we've got North Koreans sending military engineers that are gonna, you know, these guys are gonna go and help to rebuild cities and towns in Ukraine. So remember when there was, like a couple of days ago, when Putin went to North Korea, and then all of a sudden now it's in the media that the North Koreans are sending military engineers to help with reconstruction or whatever. You know, remember, guys, all right? Mission creep works both ways. What have I said about what's happening in Ukraine from NATO? I've said there's going to be these military companies, they're going to move in. You're going to have mission creep. You're going to have NATO pilots flying NATO aircraft. On the Russian side, you know, they've got North Korean military engineers. I don't even know what that means, you know, but that's what they're saying. to go in and help rebuild stuff. You will get mission creep once this starts moving. They start with military engineers, then they have military technicians, and then they just have full-on military. Absolutely insane, guys, all right? And look at the timings of the things. So when these people visit these countries, they talk about them, they make deals, they sign agreements, and then it happens. It's that quick. Also, in what else have we got? We've got Mpox or monkeypox now. That's making a comeback in DRC, Democratic Republic of Congo. That's not democratic. It's not a republic, but it is called Congo. So this has a 10% more. I'm not a scientist. I don't know what it means. I'm just looking at the information. I'm telling you guys. But we're told that this is a 10% mortality rate, guys. 10% mortality, that's like a civilization ender. If 10% of the population of the earth, died, it would mean global restructuring. It's a civilization ender. It's absolutely insane. Let me just read here what is it that one? No. Is it that one? Nope. Yeah. So where are we? Yeah, so guys, I just want to, I'll put these in the description. So this is an article from the Daily Mail, all right? So, and again, you can point to these things coming from mid-West Africa and the migration problems, and you can point your fingers at all that sort of stuff. What I want to do is I want to read from a British expert, and let's just see how let's just think about his words and think about the enormity of his expertise. Experts are worried because the new version has evolved to be even more infectious than its predecessors. With a British expert commenting, it could easily spread further by plane. Guys, I couldn't stop laughing when I read that. I'm like, where do these guys come from? Why do we need to think that if you put something on an aeroplane, it will go further than if you don't? I don't know why they're talking about this. I don't know how this guy calls himself an expert. That was kind of 10 seconds of my life I'll never get back. But anyway, guys, that's what's going on. There's not been any cases reported in the UK, as I understand at the time of filming this. This is isolated to DRC, Democratic Republic of Congo. Whether this moves, whether this transfers, whether it mutates or whatever, I don't know. What I will say is, there's a huge, in the UK as well as lots of other places in the world, there's a huge influx of people coming to this country who are not being checked. They're not having proper screening. I don't know if this is going to come to the UK. If it does, we can make another video about it and see what's happening. But that's the reality of the situation as we are now. Which brings me on to Ireland, because Ireland is a particular. I've spent a lot of time in Northern Ireland as a soldier, and so I do kind of understand the politics there. Now, those of you who've been, Ireland have got a problem with migration as well. Can we call it migration? Ireland have got a problem with people from other countries coming and settling there without going through the proper checks and balances. Now, we've all seen the protests on the streets in Ireland, and we've all seen what's been happening recently. But I don't want to go into this. Let me just read you the article again, guys. So, where we are, right, hang on. Yeah, so basically, this is the best way forwards for Ireland and Europe to deal with migration issues together, with faster processing of applications, stronger border security, and faster returns. But I think that's the thing that people are looking at now, because once these people come into your country and you don't want them there. Now, I'm personally, I'm all for immigration, for migration. If people want to live in another country, they should be able to live wherever they want to live. I don't see any problem with it. The problem comes when people are turning up in mass numbers and they don't want to assimilate into that culture or that way of life. For example, when I go to a new country, I try my best to learn the language. I try my best, to understand the culture, to fit in with those people. I've worked and I've lived in Iraq for 5 years. I've worked and lived in Afghanistan, in Syria, in Ukraine, all over the world, guys, South Africa, and I try and, whenever I go to these places, I try and understand the culture, try and fit in. I don't want to go there and say, hey guys, I'm British, you should all bow down to me, you should all do what I say. I'm in their country, and I've never had a problem in any of these countries, so that's kind of the problem with migration. It's not migration. It's the people coming, they don't want to migrate, they want to turn that country into where they've come from. So you're like, well, just go back to where you came from if that's what you want. But anyway, guys, so this is what's happening in Ireland. It looks like Ireland is strengthening the borders. Ireland is a very strange one to talk about, because throughout history, Ireland have been migrants themselves. They've been essentially slave labor when they moved to America. No one was trapped worse than the Irish. So, you can't really, when people say, talk about Britain and its colonial past, you kind of don't have that argument with Ireland. So it's really interesting to watch and see how this story develops. Russia then, guys. Russia, they are really ratcheting up the nuclear rhetoric. Now, let me just explain quickly something that was things that were happening in the in the Cold War. So in the Cold War, I think like maybe I may be wrong on this. Like I think October 1962. Yeah, I'm go with October 1960. Definitely 1962. I think October, but the month doesn't matter. That month, people say that was like the crescendo of the Cold War, and every couple of days, the Americans would test fire a nuclear weapon. The Russians would test fire a nuclear weapon. The Americans would test fire an intercontinental ballistic missile. The Russians would do the same, and they would keep going forwards and forwards. For people who know anything about nuclear weapons, it's not as easy as people think and as people talk about. So while people say, oh, they've got 3,000 nuclear weapons, and the other side say, oh yeah, but we've got 4,000. Kind of doesn't matter, because you need nuclear weapons that work, and getting them to work isn't easy. It's not. It takes a lot of physics. So that's why you would see before a nuclear detonation, you would see the ratcheting up of tests, so that, the scientists, they can say, yeah, we can confirm, we can work this. Right, okay, we get a batch of nuclear weapons, say we get 10. Right, we need to test one of them to make sure it works. Because a lot of these tests do fail. Look what happened to the UK with the submarines while Ratchets was on board. We had a nuclear missile test and it failed, because these systems do fail, and nuclear weapon systems are they're not outside that bracket of failure, so they do fail. Now, that's obviously why you need to test things. So you need to show these things working, and you need to let the other side know that you're capable of using them, and you've got the capacity, basically. So let me read you now from Sky News. Ukraine war latest. This is from today. Russia says it's considering a nuclear shift and tells the West it is playing with fire. So you've got all this happening now, guys, and you're seeing the early stages of this. You're seeing the redevelopment of these nuclear treaties. You're seeing the redevelopment of nuclear weapons, like in Europe, for example, being taken out of storage, refurbished and put into deployment positions. You've got the Russians reviewing their nuclear doctrine as, the reasons why they can fire their weapons. Now, again, be under no illusion, if Putin wants to fire them, they will get fired. The significance is they're talking about it, they're moving forward. Now, think about what I've just said, and imagine if this was being said pre-2022. people would go insane. But we've had the tactical tiptoe. We've become numb to all this stuff that's happening. If you go switch on, the mainstream media, you'll see none of this. People are talking about, ridiculous things that have no meaning. And that's where we are at the moment. We really are moving forwards. I don't see any way back. Look what's happening. Look at the Russians. They're pushing migrants as, I don't want to use the word slave labour, but definitely forced labour. They've got prisoners. They're emptying the prisons and letting the prisoners go and fight on the front line. They're sending the North Koreans in. Meanwhile, you've got NATO talking about opening up its ranks for private military contractors, to go work in Ukraine. Look at the perception now from both sides. Guys, we are in for a wild ride. And all the time this is happening, all the time we're watching this on the news, and this is what really gets me. Kharkiv is still under attack, They're still fighting right now. There's people, right now there's people in trenches and there's tanks rolling around. Pacts are being made, signed and developed. The east and west is further dividing. These things are, they're not going away. They're only going to get further and more intense. And, as we see the days go on. Guys, I've been waffling for far too long. I'm going to mag to grid and I'll see you guys later.